Walk into a grocery store and look at the canned food aisle. Most people see convenience, a quick meal, a backup dinner, something to throw into the pantry and forget about. But experienced pantry builders see something completely different. They see time, because some canned foods can remain safe and useful for years when stored properly. Not because they're magical, not because they're indestructible, because canning is one of the most successful food preservation methods ever created. That's why canned foods continue appearing in pantries generation after generation. They solve a problem few other foods solve quite as well. They buy time. And when people start thinking about long-term food storage, certain canned foods rise to the top again and again. Let's start with one of the most overlooked examples: canned carrots. Carrots rarely get much attention. People focus on meat, protein, big-ticket items. Meanwhile, canned carrots quietly sit on shelves year after year. The reason they're valuable is simple. Vegetables become surprisingly difficult to replace when grocery trips become less frequent. Fresh vegetables spoil. Frozen vegetables depend on electricity. Canned vegetables keep working. And carrots are particularly versatile. Soups, stews, side dishes, mixed meals. They fit almost anywhere. That's why many people wish they had more vegetables in storage and fewer novelty foods. The next canned food is canned green beans. This is another product that doesn't generate excitement. Yet it consistently earns a place in practical pantries. Why? Because familiarity matters. People already know how to eat green beans, already know how to prepare them, already know how they fit into meals. That's an advantage. Food that requires no learning curve tends to get used more often, and foods that get used more often provide more value. That's why green beans remain a staple. Not because they're flashy, because they're dependable. The third canned food is corn. Corn sits in an interesting category. Part vegetable, part energy source, part comfort food. Few canned foods are as widely accepted across different age groups. Children eat it. Adults eat it. Families use it in countless recipes. That broad appeal matters. Because one challenge of long-term food storage is finding foods everyone will actually eat. Corn solves that problem surprisingly well. And because it integrates into soups, casseroles, rice dishes, and side dishes, it remains useful long after trendier foods disappear from memory. The fourth canned food is diced tomatoes. If there is one canned food that repeatedly surprises people, it's tomatoes. Many households underestimate how many recipes begin with tomatoes. Pasta sauces, chili, soups, stews, rice dishes, slow-cooked meals. The list goes on. Tomatoes aren't always the star, but they support countless meals. That's why experienced pantry builders often store more tomatoes than people expect. They understand that ingredients create flexibility, and flexibility creates options. The fifth canned food is tomato paste. This one gets ignored constantly, yet a small can completely transform a meal. People often think in terms of finished foods. Tomato paste reminds us that ingredients matter too. It adds richness, flavor, depth, and because a little goes a long way, it provides significant value from a relatively small package. Many people walk past it without a second thought, then later wonder why they didn't buy more. The sixth canned food is canned potatoes. This surprises many viewers. After all, fresh potatoes are affordable. Why buy canned ones? Because convenience has value. Canned potatoes are already prepared, already cooked, already shelf-stable, and they solve a problem immediately. That's why they remain popular in many long-term pantries. People don't always buy them because they're the cheapest option. They buy them because they're one of the easiest options. And ease matters, especially when preparing meals quickly. Now here's where things start getting really interesting. Because the next canned foods move beyond vegetables and into categories that many people consider the backbone of a practical pantry. And some of them consistently disappear from shelves faster than people expect. By this point, you've probably noticed something. The longest-lasting canned foods are rarely the foods people get excited about. They're usually the foods that quietly solve problems. The foods that support other meals. The foods that make a pantry more flexible. And that's exactly where we're heading next. Because now we're moving into the foods many people consider the foundation of a serious canned food pantry. The seventh canned food is canned beans. This is where many people suddenly realize they should have bought more. Beans consistently appear on almost every practical food storage list. Not because they're trendy, not because they're exciting, because they work. Black beans, kidney beans, pinto beans, cannellini beans, navy beans. The specific variety matters less than the category itself. Beans provide protein, fiber, calories, and meal flexibility. That's an impressive combination. Imagine opening your pantry and discovering you have rice but no protein, pasta but no protein, crackers but no protein. The meals feel incomplete. Beans help solve that problem. They can be eaten alone, added to soups, mixed into rice dishes, combined with canned meat, used in chili, used in stews. Few canned foods provide as many options for such a reasonable cost. And that's why experienced pantry builders rarely ignore them. Because every time people start thinking practically about food, beans move toward the top of the list. The eighth canned food is canned chili. Now we're entering a different category entirely. Ready-made meals. One challenge with food storage is effort. People assume they'll always have unlimited energy for cooking. Reality often disagrees. Sometimes people want something simple, something fast, something filling. That's where canned chili becomes valuable. Open the can. Heat if desired. Eat. Done. The combination of beans, protein, sauce, and calories makes chili one of the most practical canned foods available. And because it feels like a complete meal, it often provides more satisfaction than basic ingredients alone. That's an important distinction. People don't just store food, they store meals. And canned chili remains one of the easiest meal solutions in the entire aisle. The ninth canned food is canned tuna. If you've watched preparedness videos before, you probably expected tuna to appear. And for good reason. Tuna has earned its reputation. Protein is one of the most expensive categories in most grocery stores. Fresh fish is expensive. Fresh meat is expensive. Yet canned tuna remains surprisingly accessible. And unlike many protein sources, it stores exceptionally well. That's why people consistently underestimate how valuable it becomes. You can eat it straight from the can. Mix it with crackers, add it to pasta, combine it with rice, use it in sandwiches, use it in wraps. The versatility is what matters. People often focus on shelf life, but flexibility is just as important. A food that stores well but never gets used provides little value. A food that stores well and gets used constantly is a completely different story. That's why tuna continues appearing in practical pantries around the world. The 10th canned food is canned chicken. This is one of the most underestimated canned foods in the store. Why? Because people compare it to fresh chicken. That's the wrong comparison. The real comparison is convenience. Canned chicken doesn't replace fresh chicken. It solves different problems. It's shelf-stable, ready to use, easy to store, easy to combine with other foods. And that's exactly why people suddenly appreciate it after buying a few cans. Wraps, soups, rice dishes, pasta dishes, sandwiches. The possibilities add up quickly. Many households buy 1 or 2 cans, then discover they use them far more often than expected. That's usually the sign of a valuable pantry item. Not that it looks impressive, that it keeps solving problems. The 11th canned food is canned salmon. Now we're moving into a category people often overlook because of price. Salmon isn't always the cheapest canned option. But value and price aren't the same thing. Salmon provides protein, healthy fats, and variety. Variety matters. The longer people rely on pantry foods, the more important variety becomes. Food fatigue is real. People eventually become tired of eating the same foods repeatedly. Salmon helps prevent that. It creates different meal options, different flavors, different textures, and that makes a pantry stronger. The strongest pantry isn't necessarily the biggest pantry. It's the pantry people actually want to use. The 12th canned food is canned ham. This one surprises many viewers, because canned ham feels old-fashioned. The truth is that many old-fashioned foods survived because they worked. Canned ham provides substantial protein, large servings, meal flexibility, and long storage potential. People often dismiss it because they don't see it often. Then they try it and realize it solves many of the same problems as other canned meats. The lesson here is simple. Don't confuse popularity with usefulness. Some of the most useful canned foods are the ones people overlook. And the final 4 foods on this list may be the most overlooked of all. Because they aren't just about storage. They're about creating options. And options become incredibly valuable over time. At this point, we've covered vegetables, beans, tomatoes, potatoes, tuna, chicken, salmon, ham. And if you've been paying attention, you've probably noticed something. The best canned foods aren't necessarily the foods people buy because they're exciting. They're the foods people buy because they continue, proving their value year after year. Now let's finish the list with 4 canned foods that many shoppers walk past without realizing how useful they really are. The 13th canned food is canned beef stew. This is one of the most practical canned meals available. Not ingredients, not components. A meal. That distinction matters. Imagine a long day. You're tired. You don't want to cook. You don't want to combine ingredients. You don't want to create a recipe. You simply want something filling. That's where canned beef stew shines. Potatoes, vegetables, meat, gravy, everything already assembled. Open the can. Heat if desired. Eat. Done. Many people underestimate the value of convenience until they need it. Then suddenly foods like beef stew become far more attractive. Because not every day is a day for cooking. And practical food storage should reflect reality. Reality includes busy days, stressful days, days when simple solutions become incredibly valuable. That's why beef stew remains one of the most useful canned foods on the shelf. Not because it's the cheapest, because it solves a problem immediately. The 14th canned food is canned mixed vegetables. This sounds boring. That's exactly why it gets overlooked. People focus on individual vegetables, corn, beans, carrots, peas, then forget that mixed vegetables combine several foods into one can. That creates flexibility. One can instantly add color, texture, and variety to a meal. Rice becomes more interesting. Soup becomes more substantial. Pasta becomes more balanced. And because mixed vegetables contain multiple ingredients, they help reduce food fatigue. Food fatigue doesn't get enough attention. People imagine long-term food storage as a numbers game. Calories, protein, shelf life, all important. But eventually people start craving variety. The same meal every day becomes frustrating. Mixed vegetables help solve that. Not dramatically, not magically, but consistently. And consistency creates value. That's why many experienced pantry builders keep more vegetables than beginners expect. They understand something simple. A pantry isn't just about survival. It's about creating meals people actually want to eat. The 15th canned food is canned fruit. Now we're talking about something many people completely forget. Until they don't. Fresh fruit is wonderful. But fresh fruit has limitations. It bruises, spoils, requires replacement. Canned fruit solves a different problem. Peaches, pears, pineapple, mandarin oranges, fruit cocktail. These foods provide sweetness and variety that pantry meals often lack. Think about what happens when someone builds a pantry without fruit. Rice, beans, meat, soup, pasta, everything is functional. Yet something feels missing. That's because humans don't just eat for calories. They also eat for enjoyment. A bowl of peaches, a serving of pineapple, a can of pears. These things break up monotony. And monotony becomes one of the biggest challenges in any pantry. The interesting thing is that people rarely appreciate canned fruit while shelves are full. Then suddenly, they realize how much they miss it. That's why canned fruit consistently becomes more valuable over time, not less. The 16th and final canned food is canned soup. This category deserves its place because of sheer versatility. Soup is one of the oldest convenience foods ever created. And there's a reason it never disappeared. It works. Vegetable soup, chicken soup, minestrone, bean soup, beef soup, lentil soup. The variety alone is impressive. But the real strength of soup is flexibility. Need a light meal? Soup works. Need a quick meal? Soup works. Need something warm and familiar? Soup works. Need to stretch ingredients? Soup works. That's an incredible amount of value from a single category of food. People often underestimate soup because it's common. Common things become invisible. Then one day they open the pantry, see a few cans of soup, and realize those cans solve multiple problems at once. That's when appreciation appears. Now let's step back and look at the entire list. Carrots, green beans, corn, tomatoes, tomato paste, potatoes, beans, chili, tuna, chicken, salmon, ham, beef stew, mixed vegetables, fruit, soup. Notice something? Most of these foods aren't luxury items. Most aren't trendy. Most aren't expensive. And that's exactly why they've survived for decades. The canned foods that last the longest aren't usually the foods generating excitement. They're the foods quietly earning trust. Year after year. Generation after generation. People often assume food storage is about buying the most extreme products, the most expensive products, the most specialized products. In reality, many of the strongest pantries are built from ordinary foods. Foods that people already understand. Foods that people already enjoy. Foods that continue proving their value. That's the key. Because food storage isn't really about collecting food. It's about reducing uncertainty. A can of soup reduces uncertainty. A can of tuna reduces uncertainty. A can of beans reduces uncertainty. Every useful item creates options, and options create confidence. That's why experienced pantry builders think differently. They don't ask, "What looks impressive?" They ask, "What keeps working year after year?" The answer is usually sitting quietly on a grocery store shelf, not attracting attention, not making headlines, just doing its job. And that's exactly why these canned foods continue appearing in practical pantries around the world. Long after food trends come and go, long after marketing campaigns disappear, long after newer products arrive. Because useful foods tend to survive. And the foods that survive are usually the foods people wish they'd appreciated sooner.